Thank you for listening to the Kyle and Tim podcast, where we have authentic conversations that help cultivate a better understanding of ourselves, our guests, and the world we live in. This podcast is about our guests, getting to know them, their backgrounds, experiences, thoughts, and ideas. We really appreciate you listening. Before we introduce our next guest, we'd like to introduce a few of our sponsors that help make this podcast possible.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Mountain Mule Transportation, located here in Bozeman, Montana. Mountain Mule is a private SUV and truck service, offering chauffeur services in all of Southwest Montana. Whether it's your next skiing, hunting, or fishing trip, early morning or late night trips to and from Bozeman Airport, as well as weddings and private parties. No matter the occasion, Mountain Mule will get you there safely and on time. To learn more, visit mountain-mule.com and book today.
This is Colt Metcalf with the Kyle and Tim podcast, and today we're going to talk about all sorts of shit from cowboying to copping to comedy, and it's going to be a good podcast. Hope you guys hang out.
Hell yeah. Enjoy, folks.
Thanks.
Thank you.
It allows you to relate to people on a level that otherwise you wouldn't, because we've all been around cops that, you know, are very squeaky clean, came from very strict and I'm not knocking on them. They're great and they offer a lot. But when you're talking to somebody who's struggling with an addiction and they just have no frame of reference, or somebody that's struggling with, you know, being a violent person and they have no frame of reference, you know, there's instantly this rapport that you can have with somebody. Like, I got in fights too when I was 18, 19. You know, I did some dumb shit when I had too many beers when I was 18, 19 also. Yeah. And they seem to really appreciate that, I think. What's our thoughts on cursing?
Oh,
it's
no,
all good,
just
man.
let it rip. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
it's all good.
Just don't send it. Don't share it with anyone. You don't want to have you hear you cursing if it's an issue.
I'm a pretty open book as far as swear words go. I've tried to self-censor to moderate success, but everybody knows that I got a mouth on me sometimes. So
No worries. We do too.
Yeah. So where are you, Colt? Where are you from? Where'd you grow up?
moved around a lot when I was a younger guy. We always came back to Bozeman. That was kind of our home base. My dad grew up here. My family's lived in Gallatin County for many generations. And no matter where we went, this was kind of always where we ended up back. I was born in Billings. One time I counted how many times I moved. And I don't know if I could reach this number again, but at one point I reached 15 moves in 14 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, my dad was he's ranch hand cowboy and constantly going from ranch to ranch. And some of those were within the same community, you know, some of those moves for sure.
So kind of short moves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, short moves, but lots of different houses for sure.
Were you always you pretty much grew up on a ranch, depending on where he was and what he was doing?
Yeah, yes, that's accurate. Yeah. Dad managed a number of different ranches growing up. He also worked as a brand inspector at various points, which the TV show Yellowstone made super famous because they're like, Yellowstone makes it look like they are SWAT cops with cows. Not exactly true. I mean, heavy on the cows, light on the SWAT, but he does have some gnarly cattle rustling stories that he can bust out once in a while.
So what is a brand inspector doing?
So predominantly what a brand inspector does is they monitor the regulation of livestock trade in the state of Montana. There's a number of rules that specifically apply to livestock, like for you to move livestock from one county to another, you have to have certain paperwork in order, things like that. And the big thing that they do is cattle rustling is a real thing. It's a multi-million-dollar enterprise, and people steal cattle a lot, and you can make a lot of money doing it. And their main goal is to stop that. It's more of a paper crime now than anything else. Mm-hmm. But they do put together cattle thieving cases every so often. So,
yeah, I wonder, are guys like chipping cows or anything these days, or no?
It's not to my knowledge. No, I don't think it's cost effective to do that. They do ear tags.
Yeah.
And that's the predominant way that they can keep track of most of them is different numbers on different ear tags or color coding that they do, which is pretty effective.
Yeah, I come from the dairy industry.
Oh yeah.
And now they're using like all kinds of electronic stuff.
Really?
But it's because they can track all the cows. They can track when they're in heat to breed them. they can know if a cow's got a fever, if
That's
anything's
true.
going off. Like
These cows got Neuralink now, man.
That's
basically,
so cool.
because they'll know if milk production's dropped, activities dropped, and they pretty much have the beat on them.
That's so
Like-
crazy.
But it's this is a dairy farm. They're not just range cattle, so
Yeah.
it's all isolated. But I think from a herd management standpoint, for like the software with dairy farming is very, very cutting edge.
I mean, I could see a practical application for it, and I don't, I really haven't touched that world in many years at this point, too much. But if the cost got brought down for GPS trackers on cows, I think it would be very practical for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, I thought like a chip you put in your dog
Yeah,
or
yeah.
something. I don't
For
know.
sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you had like an iPad. You can figure out where they're at.
Dude,
Yeah,
that'd be
like-
killer.
Yeah, I mean, it would save you a ton of time and effort trying to go find something that's not up the hill.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah, think about that.
Yeah, my
Because
sister.
I imagine there's a lot of time spent like, fuck, where are they?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And especially for those guys that are still working cows on horseback. And you're going at 3 to 5 miles an hour over the hill, over the next hill, over the next hill. Man, that would cut out a lot of time. Yeah, it'd be interesting.
Yeah, I
We should start a business. Cow chipping.
was gonna say you're on horseback with your what's the satellite? What's Elon's satellite internet?
Starlink.
Starlink tracking your cows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be sick.
Yeah,
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Instead of going cow tipping, you go cow chipping. Like that would, 50 years from now, kids won't go cow tipping anymore. They'll go
Right.
cow chipping and putting errant chips in cattle at late nights.
It's kind of like what was that thing? It was like, God, it was probably like 8 or 9 years ago when everybody was going crazy over Pokemon Go. People were running all over the country just like on their phone, like, I got him.
Dude.
And so like now you're like, no, you have to go get that cow.
Pokemon Go was cops' worst nightmare. We hated Pokemon Go so much because it was like suspicious person every night. You go,
And they were playing
and
fucking
they're
video games.
playing Pokemon Go at 3 in the fucking. I mean, it turned out to be mostly fun because you're talking to high school kids or early college kids, sometimes much older than that, and you're like, "Are you actually playing Pokemon Go?
Like, get a
Or
job, dude.
Are you doing something that you shouldn't be doing?" But that was, it was everywhere. And eventually you'd be like, "Oh yeah, there's a Charizard on this corner. We know this is going to be a Pokemon Go thing for sure."
Oh man, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
I had a friend who like took that to the next level. So like people would you'd walk around the city or wherever the hell you're at and get points, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he strapped his phone and he strapped his phone to a drone.
What?
And this was like when drones were like just coming out for like civilians. And he got like some crazy amount of points, right? And
That's
then
awesome.
and then he recorded it as well and then posted it on the internet, and it got like millions of views in the first day. Yeah, it was like the video went viral and everything.
Wow.
So it was hilarious.
That's really smart.
Yeah, it was really smart. You're like, he's a really smart guy. So
That's awesome.
you say you need a pilot's license now depending on the level of drone you have.
yeah,
Yeah, I've got my drone pilot's license.
Oh, cool.
So if it's for commercial use, if you're getting paid for it, you got to have a pilot's license. If you are just doing it recreationally, I presume if you're trying to make money off of it on YouTube, maybe I guess there's an argument.
Mhm.
I would say probably, but
So is it different training for a drone? Like much different, or is it the same pilot license?
it's quite a bit different. It's a lot easier. I've got my fixed wing private pilot's license as well, so I fly other airplanes. And it's basically just an online course for your drone pilot's license. It's something you could do in like a couple weeks, and it seems like it's going to be a killer way to make money. If I had more time or the inclination, I would definitely look into doing that.
What are you doing with the drone now?
Nothing really. I kind of helped start the drone program with the sheriff's office.
Cool.
Yeah, and that's why I got it. I've since other guys have kind of picked it up and taken it and ran with it, which I'm totally happy with. But a lot of really good law enforcement usage with it,
sure.
definitely.
Yeah, you can go find things without putting yourself in danger.
Totally, yeah, absolutely. And just from like I remember one instance where a guy fled in a car, and we couldn't go up and clear the car, but we could sure send a drone up there to look through the window and clear the car and, see what the deal was.
Right.
Way more safe. It was great.
Totally.
Do you have thermal or anything on them or no?
Yes. Yeah, they got, they've got a couple new ones since I left the program. The one that we had initially was the Mavic 2 Pro, I want to say. And that's got thermal, not super great, not the best thermal capability out there. But now I think the other ones that they have are significantly better thermal for sure. But Mavics, it's a great entry drone from what I understand. The only thing I don't like about it is the damn Chinese software that they put on it that kind of really restricts what you can do with it in a lot of ways. Not super helpful for a law enforcement standpoint, but it got the job done for sure.
Yeah, I don't have a military background, but my buddies have gotten into thermal coyote hunting.
Oh man,
Yeah,
that's cool.
It's so fun.
We should talk because I want to do that. I've got a night vision scope. I haven't killed anything with it yet. I haven't killed any coyotes or anything, but I'm thinking already I might sell that and get a thermal. So we should pick your brain.
So my brother-in-law, I know he's got one. He's 4 hours north of here. They're kind of up near the Big Sandy area.
Oh.
And another buddy of mine over near Alter, he started messing around with the thermal. Now he's using it for night calving. Just to
That's
find
brilliant.
Yeah, I know. That's what he said. It's been like revolutionary.
That's brilliant.
Because you can see everything.
Same thing with time, right? Like you used to drive around.
Yeah.
He's telling us, dude, I drive around all night and couldn't find the fucking cows.
Yeah.
And then he's like, all right, cool.
Right there.
Yep.
That's killer.
So he's not wasting time.
Some of that is so good. We'd see field mice on the sides of cornfields.
That's so cool.
And
they're that. Yeah.
It's good. It's
That's
and this was
cool.
like 4 or 5 years ago when I was using it. But some of my buddies back east where I grew up, they'll go out after work at like 7 and they won't come home till like 2 or 3 in the morning. And they'll go to work the next day. They're addicted.
Well, there's worse things to be doing until 2 or 3 in the morning for sure. That's awesome. That's pretty cool.
It is like a video game.
That's cool.
It's so fun.
I was just thinking about that. Like when we grew up, I played like, GoldenEye or whatever. Not quite the same thermal vision from the video game.
Right. Yeah. Definitely.
It was a little blurry back then.
Yeah. Yeah.
In 2002.
I bought a thermal monocular. It's probably been 10, 11 years ago. And it was pretty good for the time, but it's just advanced so much. And it didn't have a scope. It was just a monocular. I was a canine handler at the time, and I thought it had a really good practical use when I was on tracks at night. So whenever I would run a track at night, I would give the thermal monocular to the guy I was running with, and it was super helpful.
Why? How'd you use it? Like what was it?
So when we're tracking people that ran from us, it's your flashlight doesn't, one, it gives away your position when you're using it pretty significantly. And two, it's not great because you're only looking at, I'm putting my hands up like this big of a space, like 18 inches, maybe. I mean, more than that.
Sure. I got you.
A limited spot. Whereas if you throw that monocular up, you can see a lot more and a lot more clear. And if there's a heat signature, it pops like crazy.
So like a heat signature, like somebody was just there a minute ago and there's still some residual heat?
In ideal circumstances, the thermal monocular that I had would show some. Like if it was cold and they were walking on pavement and you just caught them, you could very faintly see some stuff. But if they're hiding in bushes, that was the big one because people always hide.
Yeah.
And it's way easier to see them, in tall grass or hiding in bushes or something than with a flashlight.
You can't hide, guys.
You can't hide. You really can't.
It's over. Like those days are gone.
There's people that still got away from us for sure. And it will happen for a long time, but don't do it. It's not worth it.
You guys are going to be shutting down people's cars in car chases pretty soon. Just be like, turn the car off.
I do feel like I'm on like the cusp. I'm kind of rounding out my policing career. And I feel like I'm on the cusp of like a lot of shit that people used to be able to do is just going to go away because there's cameras everywhere. They can shut cars down now. At some places they already do that. Like it's wild, to my understanding anyways.
I spent some time in Singapore, and
Do they do that over there?
Singapore's like one of the most modern places in the whole world, and it's really small. It's 25 miles by 15 miles. That's the entire country. So
Tiny.
really small, extremely modern. There's cameras everywhere, and it's just normal. To me, I was like, what the fuck's going on? Like, there's cameras like on every street corner in every direction. They just have had it, I guess, for a long time, so they just think it's normal. But what the people joke around, but they're serious. They're like, yeah, like nobody steals cars anymore because like they literally, by the time you steal the car, the cops are down the road, like with a roadblock, and they already know, and then they've blocked you in a couple locations. Like they know exactly where you are because all the street lights also know where you're at. So like at every street light, there's a camera that has a license plate reader on it too. And so they know exactly where that car is at.
Damn.
And they're just like, you're done. And so people just stop stealing cars because nobody ever got away with it.
It reminds me, did you ever watch the TV show Westworld?
I've like watched like maybe a half episode, but I never got into it. Or Minority Report.
Yeah, it reminds me of that stuff.
Yeah.
Which is kind of freaky to me. Like
It
I
is.
don't like that. I don't like that.
Too much control.
Dude, yeah. I don't like that.
Yeah, everybody needs a little good car chaser once in a while.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to advocate for, people being unsafe, but I also am fearful of government minding its own business. And I think that's a very Montana value, and most law enforcement officers, at least in this state, share that opinion. We don't want government to get so big that we're able to do shit like that.
Yeah.
You know?
Take advantage of the situation.
Yeah,
Too much control.
totally.
Yep.
Sure.
Montana has really good privacy laws, don't they?
Incredibly good. Probably I would put them up against the best in the nation.
That's
as
what
far
I've
as
heard, yeah.
Privacy laws. So we're one of the few states that in our constitution, we actually have an enhanced right to privacy. Makes my job exceedingly difficult at times. People get frustrated with it because they're like, there's a drug dealer who lives right there. Well, we have to follow a shitload of laws to be able to boot that front door. We'll get there. It just takes us a long time to do it because we really have to respect the way the laws are written.
Yeah, I'd rather be on that side of the coin than the other.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. I agree. And I think that it's a
The other thing
good
is
thing.
most people have weapons in Montana, so you probably don't want to knock that door down too quickly.
Yeah. It's the Wild West for sure. Everybody's got a gun. And I took, you get used to it. You kind of make peace with it that everybody that you're going to come into contact with is probably going to be armed. I took a buddy of mine who was a cop down in Florida for a ride along. And I come across these people in the woods, and I forget what they were doing, but I had a reason to be there, and I had a reason to make contact with them down by the river. And I come up to him, and the guy's got a gun on his hip. Pretty normal for me. I'm like, hey, guys, I've been asked to have contact with you. You're not doing anything crazy, but I need to, figure out what you're doing here. Just full disclosure, I'm going to take that firearm off your hip. I'm going to unload it, and you can have it back when we're done. Took the firearm, relieved it, unloaded it, made it safe, and finished the contact. They were super peaceful, good people. I said, okay, I'm going to put the firearm over here. I'm going to put the bullets over here. I'm going to walk back to my car. You can reload it when you're done, just to keep it safe and everything. And that just blew his mind. The Florida cop, he was like, whoa, that is wild. Like, this would have been like, call for backup. I'm like,
That you did it really by yourself.
and that it was kind of a unique way for me to solve the problem. Nobody got in handcuffs. Nobody got put in the back of a cop car. They weren't breaking any laws. But down there, that would be like, send 3 more cops and prone them out on the ground, sort of a thing,
Mm-hmm.
But we make it work. We make it work in the state for sure.
Cool.
Yeah,
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
absolutely.
You're creative,
Got
but
it.
also like efficient, creative, and that just it makes sense.
Oh yeah, and
Like by the time you were already back to your car, by the time,
yeah, exactly.
yeah, and so you're like, cool, we didn't have a problem. I'm out of here.
Yep, exactly.
Have a good day.
Yep, and respectful and kind. And I think people, they understand in this day and age, if you're armed and you come into contact with a law enforcement officer, they're going to do what they need to do to stay safe. But if you're calm and respectful and treat them good, they're nearly always compliant. And if they are not, well, then we change our tactics.
Sure. That makes sense.
Yeah, that's a nice first approach anyway.
For sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so you grew up basically in Bozeman, but moved around.
Correct.
Any kind of long distance moves?
To Texas.
Okay.
Yep.
Whereabouts?
Outside of Fort Worth, a little town called Granbury. It's spelled Granbury, but I've never heard it called that before.
Okay.
Granbury. Love Texas. It's a really cool state. And I would say they have a lot of the same values that we do up here in Montana. Very independent people, think for themselves, cowboy culture, which is kind of what I grew up with, and cool state. Love it down there.
That's what we, I think it was like I don't know if it was the first year you lived out here, but me and Kyle both went to Miles City.
Oh yeah.
And you see that just the history of the Texas Montana connection.
For
and you
sure.
do I've just kind of felt that and gotten that gist that there's just a sort of a similar mindset.
100%. Have you ever watched Lonesome Dove?
No.
So it's
only in every other country song I hear and I haven't watched.
For sure. So it was a book by Larry McMurtry and then got made into maybe the most culturally adored by cowboys TV miniseries of all time in the 80s. And the plot line of the story, and it's drawn from, the names are changed, but it's drawn from a lot of real events. The plot line of the story is two retired Texas Rangers decide to get a bunch of cattle and move them up to Montana because it's a wild country and they can become cattle barons in Montana. And it draws from a lot of legitimate things that happened. I forget who it was, but they end up in Miles City in the film. And that's a real connection. There was some big cattle drive that happened from Texas and ended up in Miles City, but super cool. Yeah. We're kind of like twin states.
Yeah, that's what I had understood. And I don't know, personally, I just love the music out of Texas.
Oh yeah.
And
great.
we get there's quite a few Texas bands that come up here and play
sure.
pretty often. And it's awesome.
Have you heard of Paul Cawthon?
Yeah.
Dude,
yeah.
I love that guy.
I think he's the best person I've ever seen live.
Me too.
I'm that guy puts on a crazy good show.
Oh, for sure.
And the amount of talent. It's he's funk, he's rock, he's country, all that stuff together. He's all that. And you're just what the fuck is going on? Hell yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's crazy. And what's really fun is you'll see all the guys in cowboy hats there that show up. You're like, these are all dudes I would not expect to be in a funk concert.
Yeah, yeah.
But he just brings all these different people in and melds it so well.
Yeah.
He's great.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah, I saw him this summer.
Well, and he'll do a traditional country song, and you're like, is this Johnny Cash?
Mm-hmm.
And then he goes into the funk, and you're like, dude, this guy could be a rapper.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. He's my walkout song when I do comedy.
There you go.
Yeah.
Which one?
Usually I do country clubbing.
Yeah. There you go.
Country clubbing. Yeah. My wife likes country as fuck, which is good, but I just think that country clubbing has a good walkout beat.
Yeah.
Very good.
Cool.
That's good stuff. Did you see it looks like maybe he's doing rehab now? Well, what not for? The guy loves his substances. God bless him. He posted something a week or so
It would be confusing in rehab. You're like, which one am I getting off?
Totally. He said, I don't know that it's rehab, but he said his people posted for him, hey, Paul's canceling he's not doing any more concerts for the foreseeable future. He's got to work on his mental health. And I'm just kind of guessing that probably means going to do some talking about substances, but I'm pulling for him. And I think that he's going to do good. I could see him having a Johnny Cash comeback where he gets sober and does really good. It's not going to hamper his creativity. He's so creative.
Yeah, that's always the concern I know it's you don't advocate for these guys just being hooked on these substances, but their creative mind is kind of untouched. We just wonder if somebody completely sober can if the well gets very deep.
People say that about, Tyler Childers, well, his new stuff's not quite as good as the stuff before he got clean, you know. I like his new stuff for
I think he
sure.
does have some of his new stuff is good.
For
Very
sure.
well written stuff.
I agree.
Paul Cawthon had just put, I don't know, an album came out not that long ago. It was good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess he could have recorded that a while ago too. So who knows? But
Yeah. It's really good stuff though. What was the big one that he just did with the recent album?
I like that song "Innocent." I know that was on his.
Yeah,
that
that's a
one's
good
good.
one.
Yeah,
That's a good one
there's a few on there.
for sure.
The one called "Slow Down."
That's a great one.
Yeah, that one was I never heard that one until I heard him live, and I was like, "Whoa!"
Isn't it? It's powerful.
Yeah, that's
And
and when you hear it live, I was like, I tell everybody this. I was like, when I was dead sober at the concert. I hadn't had a drink in months, and I was like, "This was the best concert I've ever been to."
That's awesome.
So I wasn't, it's not like I wasn't hopped up myself.
Good for you.
Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah, is it Country Coming Down?
Yeah, that was
Like
good.
that
Yeah.
when he plays that one live.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
Yeah,
They're all really good. Like, I've been to 3 times now, and never had a bad experience. Every time he treats the crowd like it's the only crowd in the world, and like, I think he really does love Montana though. I think because every time he comes up here and he'll post stories and he's partying and stuff, I'm like, oh dude, he's down by this place in Bozeman. He's down by this place in Bozeman. And I think he really loves it up here.
Hopefully, it comes back soon.
I hope so.
yeah.
hope so.
This summer it was a great weekend. This is the weekend of my birthday, and I had no plans. My girlfriend invites me to. We weren't even dating at the time, but she invites me to Paul Cawthon on Friday. Then he invites me to Paul Cawthon on Saturday. So I did the Old Saloon and then Three Forks.
Hell
This
yeah,
was
dude.
like my Paul Cawthon weekend.
So this was last summer?
Yeah,
This
Dude,
yeah.
I was at that concert in Three Forks.
Oh yeah, it was very good.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah.
it
Yeah,
was
and
awesome.
Luke, we were there, and
Yeah.
Luke was there. We saw Luke and hung out with him
cool.
for a while.
it was awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah,
It was fun.
that's a great venue for concerts out there.
That was the first time I'd been out there.
I think it was cool out there. Like so many. Well, yeah, in the summer. I guess people would do in the winter too, but so many people camped out.
Mhm.
So they just like, well, I'm not drinking and driving. They all brought their campers or
Yeah.
Sprinter vans or whatever. And I was like, I was thinking to myself, I was like, yeah, that would have been kind of cool too to just camp out. But
Yeah, for sure.
you might as well just spend the night and wake up and then go home in the morning.
I have been noticing a significant shift in like Montana culture when it comes to camping out places and not drinking and driving. It seems like a lot of people are starting to do that, and it's not nearly as wild and woolly as it used to be. People would always, like, nobody would camp at a concert when I was 18, 19 years old, But now people are being very responsible, it seems like, for the most part.
Yeah, and the younger generation drinks just way less than
It's crazy.
yeah, like
Good for them.
yeah, I would agree. I think like the younger generation seems to they've picked up like, hey, that's probably not a great idea to have 10 beers.
Yeah, that's
You know,
awesome. That will serve them well in their lifetime.
Right.
Yeah. Why do you think that is?
I was
Let's
going to
shift
say
it.
maybe they're addicted to their phones, and
Maybe that's their drug of choice.
It could be. Yeah.
Could be.
Yeah, I don't know.
They probably are much more educated than we were, though, because they just
Yeah,
the amount of information they have access to.
yeah. I mean, I was talking to somebody the other day, and I've always known this, right? Or I shouldn't say always known this. It's probably not true. I definitely would say I've known it for the last 5 to 7 or 8 years. That like alcohol's really bad for you,
Oh yeah.
But like before that, I was like, that shit's fine.
Yeah, right.
And so it's interesting, because I'm like, well, why don't I think of it that way? Like I think of it, it's like it's not that big of a deal,
Right.
right? So like, it's no big deal, but it is really bad for you.
Yeah, for
And
certain.
So, I think that younger generation just picked that up throughout their whole life, and and earlier, and so they're like, yeah, why? I'll just gonna do that a lot less.
Have you ever seen that? Like, I mean, it's kind of a viral like social media post or whatever, but like the historical record of what they drank. What was it after the signing of the Declaration of Independence at the party that they had, or it was some Revolutionary War monument. Like something big happened, and all the bigwigs were there. Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, and there was a receipt from this tavern of everything that they drank, and there was like 50. I forget. I'm gonna mess these numbers up, but let's say 50 or 100 people. And you look at the receipt that they had, and you're like, Jesus Christ, these guys were getting after it. And it's like, I think back then it was just so cultural, like it was a thing. And even if I look at my grandparents, they every night they would come home and they'd probably have 3 or 4 whiskey cokes and or whatever it was. But as time has gone on, it seems
it's funny you said. I just finished a book on Lewis and Clark, and Lewis basically like was a drunk after he got back from
I think I remember this
excursion, after he got back from coming across the country. Like he was just like blacked out, like and they like,
I discovered the Missouri, god damn it.
Yeah, and I guess he was like just going around from like, basically when he got back he was kind of like a celebrity, right?
Oh, for sure.
And so then he was just going to parties all the time and telling people like these amazing stories, right? Which these people would be like super interested. Of course, they've never heard any of this stuff, and this is the guy, so you're going to listen to his story. But he would just go to these parties and get blacked out drunk, like in terrible shape, to the point where like all of his friends and colleagues were super worried about him.
Oh,
and he was doing this 5-6 nights a week.
Well, his first name is Merriweather. I feel like that's going to make you drink. Hey, Mary, you need to slow down. Fuck you. My name's Mary. I'm drinking more.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I wonder what.
Yeah, it's an interesting phenomenon.
Yeah, I wonder if like.
Well, back in the day, even before that, like in medieval times, they would brew beer, and it was very low alcohol percentage. It was like 2.5%, maybe 3% on the outside, but they would only drink alcohol because it was the only means that they had to purify the water.
Yeah.
Because in that process, it would become purified. So like little kids, all they do is drink beer all day long, which, if that is your metric of a good thing to drink, I mean, I'm sure can you imagine like little 3rd and 4th graders just walking around ham-boned out of their mind, CPS. They didn't have CPS back then.
Yeah. I mean, right. Yeah. It's interesting. I don't know. It's probably something kind of fun to study a little bit of like, what was the alcohol consumption of people in the United States for the last 250 years?
For sure. Yeah. Well, and then you look at like the super impactful people that were very clearly had alcohol problems, like Winston Churchill, right? Like he was a known alcoholic, but was the man of the hour when it came time for it.
So it is so funny because then you think like some of these people are super powerful and you're like, the guy was on the sauce.
Yeah, dude.
Like, why is this guy in charge?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, like it doesn't, but also got the job done. I think maybe functional alcoholism was a thing that back in the day, where as long as you show up to work and work your 8 to 5 and you're doing everything that needs to be done, society's willing to look past a lot of that shit. Whereas now, maybe not so much.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I got some friends that are functional alcoholics. Shout out to, I'm not going to say your name. They're so fun, and they're like, they get shit done. They're
For
like,
sure.
some guys make really good money and they're fun to be around. And
Work hard, party hard.
Yeah. They just keep like I think for some people it's just genetic too. And like, it's also a tolerance. If you do something enough regularly,
totally,
your body's going to
It's definitely habitual, and it become, you can just, you're just like, it's normal. I'm like, well, it doesn't have to be.
Right.
But yeah, it's normal.
Right. Totally. And it's amazing the amount of punishment that your body's willing to take, once you become accustomed to it and what you can function with. Like, it's pretty wild.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. I think at some point your body says, hey, this is what I'm going to be fed every day. So I'm going to learn how to adapt and make this work
100%.
as long as it will, until it won't.
So you came from dairy farming and you lived in Montana most of your life?
No, I grew up in upstate New York.
Upstate New York.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
So like, like sort of similar, but completely different in a lot of ways too.
I've heard it's very rural. As soon as you get outside of the Big Apple,
Yeah.
it's much similar to.
Yeah, I mean, I like the reason there's so many. I think it's the second or third most dairy farms in the U.S. are in New York,
Oh wow.
and you have this city that's heavily populated, and all that just made a giant demand for agriculture.
Totally.
So all these farmers would have milk, and it all go down to the city. There's a huge demand.
Makes
there.
sense.
So that'd be the place to have a farm.
Totally.
So it's kind of farms have grown out. It's all farmland up there, but
I've heard it's pretty too.
it is, yeah, and it's really pretty certain times of year, very dense and then beautiful in the fall.
Yeah.
When you were talking about the guns, I was thinking that it can be anywhere in New York. I think it's almost against the law to even ever shoot somebody else's handgun.
Wow.
Yeah, and you have to it'll take people over a year just to get a handgun permit.
That's crazy to me.
And that's that's all based.
What do you think about that?
I mean, it sucks.
Yeah.
Like,
why do you think it sucks? What sucks about it?
I mean, if you grow up in a town of 1,500 on a dairy farm, it's just like you'd want to have a handgun. You might need it for the farm, and you might want it if you're hunting.
Sure.
You don't have grizzly bears, which is, I mean, one of the main concerns when you're in the backcountry here. But I had a buddy come out hunt. He came out archery hunted, and I just gave him an extra handgun. He's like, "Oh, are you sure it's fine?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's fine here, man," because that's where he's from.
Oh, so if he's carrying somebody else's weapon and it's not they'd arrest registered to him.
Yeah.
Wow.
They would arrest you?
Yeah.
So I've heard horror stories. These are unverified that I can't remember if it was, New York or Chicago or both, but in some places, if you are a cop, so there is a federal bill called the Law Enforcement Officer Safety Act, which basically says if you're a cop anywhere in the United States, you can carry anywhere. It's basically like a 50, it's any state concealed carry you can carry there. And some states, I believe New York is one of them, if you have too large of a magazine, they will still jam you up, even if you're a cop. And they're like, they just don't care, which is wild to me. Like,
so if you have an extended magazine or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of restrictions. And yeah, it's funny. I know, like, my mother has a handgun permit in like Utah or something, which gets you like 30 states or something. I don't know what, but yeah, you can't. I mean, at the same time, if you're in the city and there's 20 million people, like, I don't know, do you want everyone to have a gun on their hip?
Personally?
Yeah, it's hard to say.
I do.
Yeah.
I do, personally. After having spent a career in law enforcement, I can tell you how many times I've shown up right after the bad things happened and I've picked up the pieces. That is way more common than showing up in the middle of the bad thing and being able to stop the bad thing. It's my firm opinion that the best person to take care of individual safety is that person.
Yeah.
And now, that being said, not everybody should have a firearm. Like, there are certain people who have extensive criminal histories that are very clearly violent, very clearly mentally ill. I think they probably don't need those things. Or the people who are unwilling to be accountable, unwilling to train. Like, having a gun on your hip is a huge responsibility, right? And not everybody has the desire to be fruitful with that tool. And if you don't, then by all means don't. There's other options for you. There's other ways to keep yourself safe. But I'll tell you what, an armed society, in my opinion, is a polite society. I think that really helps keep bad guys in line, in my opinion.
No, I agree completely. I think there's just more of a mutual respect amongst everyone.
Oh yeah.
Like, hey, like, maybe I won't be such a piece of shit in traffic, and like,
Totally.
because probably 9 out of 10 of these cars everyone's armed in there, and like,
Totally.
just have a little bit more respect that the playing field's a little bit more even for everyone.
100%. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up outside Los Angeles.
Outside LA. So that's also a pretty heavily restricted firearms area.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. I don't pretend to know like all the rules and regulations are in California, but I guess what I am familiar with is it goes really the rules change drastically by county.
Hmm.
Um,
That makes sense.
yeah, and so it's interesting. There's certain counties that it's very restrictive, and then there are other counties like some of the more rural counties where you're like it's kind of wide open. Yeah, I mean they have some funny rules, some really kind of I would say petty rules that people just work around because they're kind of stupid.
Right.
Like in California, if you want to have an assault rifle, you have to have like a bullet button, right? Well, like, fucking everybody gets around that.
Right.
And so it's like, that's a stupid rule.
Yeah.
Like, everybody's just going to break that rule.
Yeah.
And same thing with the magazines. Like, okay, like you don't think that people can go purchase bigger magazines?
Totally. I mean, you can get them online.
So, right. And so, they have some, the state has some interesting, rules and regulations.
For sure. Yeah, we're very blessed in Montana to have, I think, the philosophy towards firearms that we do have. Obviously, I think everybody can agree some people shouldn't have guns, and we already have rules in place that prevent that. But I will tell you, like when I'm away on a training or out of town and my wife is at her house alone, she is well armed and she knows how to use that shit. And I sleep great when I'm sleeping in another town knowing that.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, sometimes it's like, and I think it's great. Like, it seems like more women are armed.
I love it.
And they should be. Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
My wife has a saying. I'm going to see if I can remember it. She says, Second Amendment rights are women's rights. And I'm like, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. That's, the great equalizer. And doesn't matter if you're carrying a tiny little 22 or a giant 45 or 45 long Colt. I know a lot of big, bad, tough SWAT guys that don't want to stand in front of a 22 barrel. It's the great equalizer for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were talking about Texas music. Have you heard 12 Gauge Shotgun, Casey Donahue?
No, I've not heard that one.
It's basically a song about like a guy who puts his hands on a woman and she gets her shotgun out.
Hell
It's
yeah.
a pretty good one.
Hell yeah.
It's a
I'm going to
pretty
listen
good
to
one.
that. That's
It's
awesome.
Good. Yeah. So did you have a rodeo career?
Yeah, I rodeoed a little bit too. Not super great, but I wasn't terrible, but I was not great. I started pretty late. It was fun. It was a great time. I loved riding bareback horses. I did a little bit of saddle bronc as well. Not as good at that, but it is the closest thing that I've ever experienced to being a rock star. Even if you're not great at it, you go to these rodeos, and even if you didn't win any money, you walk away from it. And then, like, especially in Bozeman, because we've got all these people coming in from out of town, just a line of girls were like, "Hey, you were in the rodeo." And I'm like, this is amazing. I wish I could do this for 20 or 30 years.
That's awesome.
It's pretty cool.
And I bet like your adrenaline is just like on fire.
Oh, dude. It's amazing. So I've always been an adrenaline junkie, learning to fly airplanes, rodeoing, law enforcement. And it's always chasing that feeling. A lot of people make analogies between like the closer you are to death, the more alive you feel. And that is so true for me. So true for me. And when you're climbing in the chute, you put your hand in that rigging and you nod your face and it's just you and the horse, and you got a big ass crowd watching you too. It's just through the roof.
Yeah.
Adrenaline. It's so much fun.
How do you do that now with your job where you're like, because you like the adrenaline,
right?
So then you know that about yourself.
Correct.
How do you do that and still keep yourself safe and make the right decisions?
So they've done a really good job. Even when I started my career many years ago, they were teaching in the academy the concept of tactical breathing, which is basically just a breath control. And when you take over your breath and you do it on purpose, in for a 3 count, out for a 4 count, in for a 3 count, hold for a few seconds, out for a 4 count. Whenever you do that, it prompts a psychological response, and it basically allows you to re-hijack your body's systems and calm down. And I'm sure they teach a lot of this in fighting as well. And that was really the start of my ability to understand how I've always kind of like been okay under pressure, but once I really grasped breathing techniques, it's a game changer in keeping clarity of thought and being able to think under stress for certain. And then that for me personally kind of morphed into different meditation practices. And I mean, it was called mindfulness when I found it, but then eventually I found out that was basically the same shit as just Buddhist meditation. Sounds tougher when you say mindfulness exercises, but and that is another very valuable and powerful tool, not just for stress control and regulation, but also de-stressing and mental health after the fact, which is just so valuable. And law enforcement is getting much, much better about that stuff now.
Cool. That's awesome.
Helping you guys have access to this kind of information and implementing it.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. When I first started being a cop in like the early 2000s, there was still kind of a stigma to like mental health stuff in law enforcement. Back in the day, there's horror stories of guys that would go to their bosses and say, hey, I'm struggling because of XYZ. I mean, there's any number of things that a guy could be struggling with in this job. And the bosses would say, oh, okay, we'll get you a shrink. And then you go to talk to the shrink. And the next thing you know, the shrink talks to your boss. Then your boss is pulling you into the office and saying, we're taking your badge and your gun and you're not going to be a cop anymore because you expressed some kind of weakness that they thought might manifest itself in the street. Not like that anymore. Now people are very pro mental health. Most cops I know have seen a counselor or do see one on a regular basis. Super good for you. I do have for years. I think of it as just like good mind maintenance. And yeah, it's really
like going to the gym.
It's like going to the gym for your brain, for sure.
It's funny. My buddy, I have a buddy, Spencer, who's a firefighter in San Francisco, downtown San Francisco. And not law enforcement, but he sees a lot of wild shit.
The shit he's seen.
The shit he's seen in downtown San Francisco. And he was saying somewhat of the opposite of what you're saying, is that like it hasn't evolved. And that, and he's like, guys won't go seek out help because that's still happening. And so, he's got some buddies that have had a hard go of it because they're, like they don't feel like they can go and get help. And maybe that's just his station, right?
And it could be a state by state thing too. Montana's a funky state. We already talked about the enhanced right to privacy, but we're also like, we do our own thing.
But Montana's also like, hey, we don't have anybody to replace that person. So they got to keep working.
Total, 100%.
You know what I mean? Like, where the fuck are we going to get somebody?
Yeah.
Like, this is the only guy we got.
Yeah, for sure. You're not wrong. Absolutely. And so they have a vested interest maybe in making sure that first responder is taking care of themselves. That could be a part of it. That could be.
I don't know. It's just a guess.
I was surprised to hear you say that because California, you would think they're so, evolved.
Why you got to stereotype like that, bro?
Because it's like San Francisco. It's like,
yeah, you would think
San Francisco's the mecca of like, everything that's evolved and terrible with this country. But so you think you think 20 years ago they would have been doing this stuff and been
right. I would have guessed that.
Yeah,
too.
no, I mean,
I was just surprised to hear you say that.
I think the state of California is, everything that is really, really, really awesome, and also everything that's really, really, really shitty, and everything all together.
Yeah,
it's like it's super nuanced, and anyway, that was him telling me about his experience at his particular station.
You know what Montana's like? Montana's like Paul Cawthon. It is very funky. Because I was just talking with a client the other day about this, that, they're like, oh, weed is legal here, recreational. I'm like, yeah, you'd almost think we'd be the last place.
Right.
Like we're so so late to the party. And then on some things we're
pretty cutting edge on some weird stuff.
And so it is an interesting.
I think we were right on time with weed. We were like, let's a couple people figure it out.
Yeah.
Let's let those fuckers over there figure it out. Then we'll learn a couple things and then we'll implement it.
That has been a weird change in my law enforcement career. Because when I first started, like oh man, I caught somebody with weed. It was like a big deal now. And frankly, I can't speak for every law enforcement officer out there, but I would much rather deal with somebody who's high on weed than somebody who's shit faced on Jim Beam.
Yeah, you and me
of
both.
course.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So I know that a lot of cops were very skeptical when it became fully legalized here, but honestly, man, I don't have a problem with it. I don't think most cops do. Can't speak for all of them, but
Probably just have to deal with like less petty bullshit. Like if you're going to, meaning like if there was a petty, kind of situation with somebody with weed, you're like, okay, I don't really have to deal with that as much as anymore.
for sure, it was definitely a big freeing up of resources.
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh, okay, I don't want to write this other 3-page report because this guy had half a bowl on his coffee table. Now it's like, I don't care, whatever. As long as you're not placing anybody else at risk, do your weed. I don't give a shit.
Right.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
Yeah, I don't mind. For certain. It definitely freed up a lot of resources, and the state is making bank off of that shit. They are making so much money in revenue.
I wonder what they're doing now with it.
They're putting it to work.
They're not plowing the roads.
Right. Throwing some shade at the plow drivers.
No, the plow drivers are cool.
Right. They don't have money. They don't have money to hire.
Like something else, like they're just not sending them out.
They're so short staffed.
I'm sure they are.
They should, but you're right. I think
They
that's
should
a great
they
idea.
should honestly double the pay of the plow drivers. 'Cause
Preach.
they're like way underpaid, and it's like extremely critical to people. But it's like you think about it from the economy standpoint, like commerce,
Oh, for sure.
like it's critical. Like people need to get to work so they can
and that's a stressful
like keep the
job,
economy
too.
rolling. That's
People-
what I mean.
People drive like crazy around those plow drivers, and they're constantly trying to play Frogger with other cars. on
Yeah,
the
it's
road.
in the middle of the night and you can't see shit, and they can't see you. And
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know a number of plow drivers, and that is a hard job to do. God bless them. You're absolutely right. What they need to do is they need to find
honestly,
a way to
if they
double the
literally
pay.
doubled the pay and made it $50 an hour, because I think last year it was like 25.
Yeah.
Like
I think
that
it's
would still, if you think about it, if you, like do the math real quick, double that, and then however many plow drivers there are across the state, there's not that many,
Agreed.
right? So like that's not the budget that's going to bust, or that's not the issue that's going to bust our
Take
budget.
some of that weed money.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's go plow drivers.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tricky because the wages, like the state wages, are like not based on what it costs to live in Bozeman. So how are you going to find somebody? I mean, I know like MSU has the same issue too. They pay state wages for
Mhm.
faculty there, and it's 5 times as much in Bozeman as it is in Billings. So
Yeah. Bozeman's just a wild place right now.
I mean, or they just need to like start a different system of like, we need some Uber plow drivers.
Oh,
now
there
you're
you
onto
go.
something.
There you go.
You know, like, hey, we have to figure out how to train people.
I think you're onto something.
We
Here.
have to figure out how to train people. Like, hey, you want to drive for 3 hours and then go back to sleep? Cool,
Yeah.
do it.
And
Jump in,
What would
make
like the release of liability, or like what would be the liability on that if you're the Uber owner of plow drivers? If you own that company, like,
I don't
fuck,
know,
I got to
man.
replace another lawn. Fuck, I got to replace another mailbox. I got to replace another, like, yeah.
And if the highways and main roads aren't bad enough, you get on like any side street in Bozeman and there's 12 people living in a house, so there's 15 cars. Like there's not a spot to park on the street,
Oh
so
my
you got to
God.
plow
Yeah.
through all those cars.
You get one swipe to
Yeah.
go down there, if that. Yeah. It's wild.
Yeah,
They were trying to
I mean,
do
you could-
something with the
we could figure
parking.
it
Did
out.
you hear about this in Bozeman?
Mhm.
Like I think on Tuesdays, like everyone was supposed to only be able to park on one side of the street. And then it was like Thursday. So this was supposed to be so they could clear all the snow because
yeah.
I think for the most part it failed miserably because you just can't get the information to enough people.
Right. And then even
And-
if that's the case, like it's not like there's room on one side or the other of the street.
Yeah.
Where are those people going to park? Like, it's very jam packed downtown for sure.
We could figure it out. I'm sure of it. People
certain.
have gone to space.
Yeah. Get Elon on that shit, dude. We need Elon to figure out parking.
Elon, can you please do 2 things? Audit the TSA and fix the airport security. Number 1,
in that order?
get that shit figured out, because every airport's different. To come to Bozeman and get the roads plowed.
Oh yeah, for sure. If you're listening, Mr. Elon, Mr. Musk.
Yeah, get Doge in here.
Yeah, dude. Dude, Doge is doing some wild shit right now.
Yeah.
They're just like ripping everything out by the. It's entertaining, for certain. I know that there have been people that are, I know people in government work that are losing their jobs, which is super sad. My anticipation, my gut feeling is they're going to get their jobs back, but it's like rip it out by the root and then build it back, I think is probably what's going to happen.
Yeah, there'll definitely be some destruction on the path to, becoming more efficient.
For
hopefully.
certain. I just don't, like millions of dollars to condoms in other countries. Like, I'm not about that. I don't think we need that.
Yeah, I don't.
No, for sure. Yeah.
I don't know. Let's take a look at the country and the population and see if maybe we'll support it. We might support that.
On a case by case.
Actually, send those
scenario.
back.
Actually,
they should probably be using those.
You know what? Fuck condoms. Free vasectomies.
Everyone.
We'll just do that, depending on the country. That's awesome. That's hilarious.
Are you still doing any rodeoing now or no?
No, man. This is not a rodeo guy's body. No, the rodeo was several pounds ago, my friends. I stopped doing that in 2010 or so. Basically, I was already getting old, and I needed to get back into a job that was going to pay the bills, because sooner or later I was just going to really hurt myself and fuck myself up to the point where I'm not going to be able to work, and that would be a real problem. So super fun thing to chase and to have fun with, but it was never going to be probably a career for me. My dad was really great at rodeoing, and at one point he was ranked, I think, 16th or 17th in the world in saddle bronc riding.
Whoa.
Yeah, and he was really good. Still, especially back then, being 16th or 17th is not making any money.
Right.
Rodeo is not a super well-paid sport. It's a lot better now than it used to be, but compared to other professional sports, it's
right.
a pittance. And back then it was even much, much less. And so he eventually had to move past his dream and started managing ranches and being a brand inspector. But that's where I got my love for the sport, for sure. And if I could be 23, 24 for the rest of my life and didn't have to worry about paychecks, I'd definitely be rodeoing for sure all the time. It's fun.
I don't blame you.
How about your comedy career? When did that start?
That's fairly recent. 6 or 8 months ago, I started. Well, I've always wanted to.
Talk about an adrenaline junkie.
Yeah. Yeah. I've had a weird thing in my life. I've never really been afraid of public speaking, and
why not? Why not?
I don't know. That's
you are.
question.
We need to do a mental check.
I need to do a mental check on that. I don't know why. Ever since like a little age, my parents noticed. Some of it's my parents. My parents noticed that I was never afraid. Like there's a couple times where I was interviewed by the news when I was a little kid, because I was a little cute kid wearing cowboy hats and Wranglers and just looked, like a little cowboy. And so they would always put me in front of the cameras. Never bothered me. And then I just kind of grew up with that. And when I was a kid, I was always listening to comedy, like freakishly listening to comedy albums. I know this isn't going to sound like this has gone out of vogue, but a lot of Bill Cosby albums.
All right.
When I was a kid.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, dude, I listened to this shit. I probably had 3 of his albums memorized, like completely. Always wanted to do stand-up. And about 5 or 6 years ago, I went to my first actual legit comedy club down in Las Vegas. There was a gal there, and she was a little bit older. I mean, now at then I thought she was older. Now she's maybe mid 50s, and she was hilarious. She cracked me up, and she had made some joke about how she started later in life in comedy. And after the show was over, I approached her. I'm like, man, that was really inspiring. I've always wanted to do comedy. Do you have any advice? And she's like, don't wait. And so I immediately waited 5 or 6 years. And then a little while ago, we got Last Best Comedy, shout out to them in Bozeman. And I was like, okay, we've got a comedy club in town. And then I found out that they actually have comedy classes, stand-up comedy classes. I was like, fuck, I'm putting my foot in the pool. Like I'm dipping in, seeing if I can do this. And did a couple comedy classes, loved it. And they do a showcase at the end of every comedy class. Got up on stage, loved it. And just really haven't looked back since. I just entered the Montana's Most Funniest Human Person contest.
Hell yeah.
Which is a great name. Became a finalist, which was, I think I was like the guy with the least amount of time doing comedy that was a finalist. Didn't win, but I'll get it next year. But it was a blast. I'm just going gangbusters on it. It's great.
How many days a week are you doing it? Or how days a month, I guess, maybe?
I'm trying to get up on stage 2-3 times a month.
Okay. Pretty good.
Yeah. And I'm trying to work new material. I'm trying to do different versions of stuff. So I do stand up, and then there's also kind of like a subcategory of stand up called storytelling, which is just much more narrative focused. So I've been doing some of those as well, which is a blast. Ultimately, I'd like to have, so when you first start out, you don't get a lot of time on stage. You get like 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes. 8 minutes would be a long set when you're first starting.
Seems
out.
long enough for me.
Yeah. But a story is very hard to compress into 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're first starting out, you're doing like a lot of setup, punchline. And the longer time you have, you can kind of arc into these narrative stories, which is where I want to go with my comedy, because I think that's really good art form. And I just like doing that. And I've dabbled in it a little bit now, and it's just a blast. I love it. It's great.
Cool. Do you know who Rich Hall is?
Rich Hall.
It's okay.
I don't
know.
know.
He's a comedian out of Livingston.
Oh, is he a cop too?
I don't think so.
Okay. There's some cop that's a comedian out of Livingston as well.
This guy's an older guy. He comes to Last Best Comedy every once in a while. I drive over from Livingston.
Oh, cool.
But I guess he does comedy in Livingston like every week.
Where's he going, Livingston? What's the comedy scene
I don't
like
know.
over there?
There's one spot, I guess,
Okay.
that he goes regularly. But I saw him here at Last Best Comedy. The dude was so hilarious. I was like, this is unreal.
That's awesome.
And he was like off the rails. Like he's probably in his late 60s or 70s. And so
wow.
he was bringing some heat from like stuff. You're like, hey, you're really not allowed to say that anymore, but that's really funny.
Yeah. That's awesome, dude. I like that. It's, I think that comedy is one of those things that it doesn't matter how old you are, as long as you just have a good sense of humor.
Yeah.
Because there's funny things about every age bracket, right? Like
Yeah.
I want to do a bit about, I just recently got a CPAP, and I think that's fucking hilarious. Having this big fucking elephant nose hanging off of me when I'm sleeping every night. I think it's hilarious. Which, shout out to CPAPs. They rock. Like if you need one, fucking get one. Don't waste your time. But
don't wait 5 or 6 years like you did.
Don't wait
comedy.
for 5 or 6 years. But you know, and what's funny when you're 41, when you're my age, is different than what's funny when you're 21, you know, and they all have their place. And I think it's just such a cool art form, you know, and that's the funny thing about stand up. Like I didn't realize how badly I was craving a creative outlet. Government work is the killer of creativity.
Yeah.
You know, and this has just been like turning on the fountain and just tons of opportunity for creativity. It's been great.
It's awesome.
I can imagine you've got like a great well of shit to talk about for comedy.
Dude, my material is bar none. It's hilarious. Like the crazy shit that I've gotten to be a part of and seen. I've delivered a fucking baby, which was terrifying, by the way. You know, I did.
You get a raise after that? What the fuck?
You would think, right? No, I still make the same government wage. You know how slippery babies are when they come out?
No.
They're fucking slippery, bro. They will bounce all around. You're like, God damn, I don't have great hands.
Yeah.
So we got through it. Shout out to that kid. But that was a blast.
Do you name him? I mean, you must have named him.
You know, that was brought up. The mom already had a name planned. I don't think I curse anybody with the name Coulter. That's a pretty weird name to have. It's much more common now, but you'll never get one of those little license plates if your name is Coulter. You know the license plates that you get at like
on your bicycle
or whatever.
Yeah.
There's never a Coulter.
Right.
You know what's a ripoff? They do have Colton sometimes,
Mm.
but never Coulter.
Right.
It's fucked up. Now my wife looks for Coulter everywhere. She hasn't ever been able to find one. Her friend Loren looks for Coulter on the license plates.
Amazon.com.
Lindsay, did you hear that?
I don't know.
Amazon.com.
I don't know. Somebody's got to make it.
I feel like that's cheating though.
Probably.
You got to find it in the wild. You got to hunt your license
Good
plate
luck.
in the
Good luck.
wild.
You have to
Someday
go
I'm
out.
gonna find
It'll
one.
be in some random store in the middle of nowhere.
It's going to be a Buc-ee's in southern Utah, someplace, and they're going to have a Coulter.
Shout out to Buc-ee's.
Shout out to Buc-ee's. Yeah.
Maybe
you-
Buc-ee's wants to be a sponsor of the show.
Yeah.
Dude,
have you been?
I've been to Buc-ee's before.
My
Yeah.
mother told me because I was driving by one from Knoxville to Nashville. She's like, you have to stop and see it. And
That's
I'm like,
pretty
okay.
fucking wild.
Yeah.
I feel like Town Pump's going to rival them at some point.
Yeah, we're getting there.
We're getting there. Have you seen the new
Yeah,
one?
but
on Huff Fun?
Buc-ee's is on another level.
It's another level, but
Yeah,
I think we're
like-
going to get there.
All right. Yeah.
That's my projection.
Yeah, the first time I stopped into Buc-ee's, I was like in the middle of between, like I think it was Dallas and San Antonio or something, and I pull over. I'm like, what the fuck is this place? This place is huge. I just need gas.
That's
You know?
awesome.
It was enormous.
That's awesome.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know who said it out here, but they called the town pump the Trump pump.
The Trump Pump?
Yeah, and that's all I think of now.
Oh,
and
dude,
they
that's
just keep
great.
getting bigger and bigger. I'm
That's
like,
great.
This makes sense.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's like a Montana embassy, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's awesome. I love Town
You haven't
Pumps.
been on that new one, in the new one down there on Huffline?
It's wild. It's kind of like my hidden gem so they have like a full bar in there.
That's what someone said.
And it's classy, dude. It's nice. It's really nice. No, like it's
Is that part of the casino or is it just
no. So you go from the convenience store into the casino, which is walled off, and then another wall, and then you go into the actual bar. It's like a sports bar. I watched a couple Cats games there this year, and it was fucking nice.
Cool.
Huh, that's good to know.
Yeah,
Little hideaway over there.
it is, and it's not. Well, now it's going to be busy because now it's.
Oh,
we're
yeah.
putting it out, we're putting it out in
Right.
the universe
Yep.
for sure. But I highly recommend it if you haven't been in there yet,
Yeah, I'll have to tell my sister and brother-in-law because they live like kind of across the way from there.
dude. They're gonna love it.
It would be
Yeah.
interesting. Like, hey, meet me at the gas station. We're gonna watch the game.
Meet me at the Town Pump. We're gonna.
No, my girlfriend's roommate was talking about that. I'm like, what the fuck is she talking about? The bar and the. I'm like, she must be talking about the casino. I just kind of brushed it off.
Right? You would think that. It's like the most hidden gem in Bozeman right now. It's pretty cool.
The Trump pump.
The Trump
If
Pump.
we just call it the Trump pump, then it'll be a big divide and it won't be as busy. So
Totally.
yeah.
I like that. I like that. Playing the
We should start
reverse
making
Uno.
Trump pump shirts.
Trump pump. Yeah,
We should make podcasts.
they would sell the Trump pump shirts.
You know what's really good? Lindsay loves a good Town Pump corn dog. Like she will go
Dude,
out
she
of
would
her
be
way.
in love with our buddy Rick.
Oh, really?
Our buddy Rick eats these corn dogs.
He probably gets the town and country corn dogs.
Or I think I honestly don't think he discriminates.
Mhm.
And what he says is if you want to separate the men from the boys, somebody goes and gets a gas station corn dog, and you
Dude.
see when they need to pull over.
Oh, for sure. 100%, dude. I got a garbage gut from way back. So the first agency that I was ever a cop at was East Helena Police Department, which was a very small agency. They only had, I don't know how many they have now, but I think they had 3 or 4 full-time cops when I was there. And they didn't have shit open at night. And I was 21 years old. They didn't have any late night restaurants and no late night grocery stores. And I was too lazy and didn't have my shit together enough to pack a lunch every night. The only thing that they had open was a Town Pump. And so the amount of now beef jerky hot dogs that had been sitting on there, dude, I gobbled those things down for many a night
Yeah.
to get me through. Yeah. Shout out to the East Helena Town Pump.
It's even like Big Sky. You're like hung out to dry if it's like there's nothing even in Big Sky
For
after
sure.
10 p.m.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
There's just no. I don't think there's anything open up there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know what time what do they call it? The one gas station that's at the corner.
Yeah,
there?
it's like 9 or 10 or something. That one.
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when did you join the sheriff's department?
2013.
Okay.
2013.
Gallatin County.
Gallatin County Sheriff's Office.
Awesome.
Yeah.
How many of them are you? Like how many you guys got?
So sworn cops, we have right around 69 or 70.
Okay.
That's it fluctuates a lot just depending on retirements and, people leaving, people coming.
Yeah.
Then a bunch of non-sworn in the DC. I think total employed by the sheriff's office between detention officers, sworn, and all the support staff is around 200.
Okay.
I want to say, plus or minus.
So what's a non-sworn officer? What's the difference?
So state law says that if you're a sworn officer, those are the ones that are on the road that are, doing traffic stops, making arrests.
Okay.
Basically, you can make arrests and you're armed.
Okay.
Is the main distinction. Whereas a detention officer, you're not allowed to make arrests, and you're usually not armed. There's some provisions that if you are doing a transport, sometimes you can be armed with,
Okay.
with additional training. But that's the main distinction.
Okay. Got it. So you joined in 2013.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Got it. What kind of whip do you drive?
A Chevy Tahoe.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
A pursuit rated Chevy Tahoe.
Yeah. Those are new, right? Pretty new.
Mine is a 21, I think, 20
Yeah,
or
pretty
21.
new.
Pretty
Yeah,
new.
cool.
It's got a lot of miles on it. I call it the Rattler. It's been ridden hard and put away wet. It rattles down the road now.
Yeah. I got it.
But I love my vehicle. I would much rather drive the old beater of the vehicles than the brand new one. For
Okay.
sure.
Why is that?
Because nobody gives a shit if you bump into something
Okay.
or on
I didn't think
old
they cared
vehicle.
anyway.
You
man.
sound like a rancher just opening gates with your brush yard.
Not quite that bad.
Yeah.
Not quite that bad. But if you have a door ding or something like that, and I say this mostly in jest, but if you have the new vehicle, God bless our support staff that spends so many hours, getting it striped, getting it kitted out, getting the lights put in, all this. But every time there's a new scratch on a vehicle that has 50 miles on it, they're like, "Oh my!" It's the same as when you get a new car,
Yeah.
right? I would much rather have the old broken in rig myself.
Yeah. I got you.
For sure.
You don't have to hear about the bullshit.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
How many officers are up around Big Sky?
So the Big Sky District consists of everything basically from the mouth of the canyon all the way to West Yellowstone.
Yep.
And in the Big Sky detachment, I think they've got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I think about 6 in Big Sky proper, and then 2 down in West Yellowstone.
Mhm.
Yeah. I wish that they had more. Honestly, they do a great job, but classic cop problem.
It's a big area.
It's a big area. But
Yeah.
they do a great job. They get by.
You guys have a helicopter?
No.
We got to get you a helicopter.
God damn right.
I'm serious.
I'm serious.
Like, let's take some of that weed money and get a fucking helicopter for the county.
We do have some contracts with private helicopters for search and rescue purposes and stuff like that. The insurance, I might mess this up, but my understanding is
You could fly the thing, dude.
yeah, that'd be fucking awesome. I would love to fly helicopters for sure. That'd be so cool. But I think the insurance gets jacked up as soon as you start asking them to do police actions like chase bad guys, because bad guys will shoot at helicopters and shit. But we do have these independent contracts for with helicopter agencies to if there's a search and rescue that needs to happen, you need to pull somebody off of a mountain. We have helicopters for that we use.
Mm-hmm.
It's not our pilots, but
I guess if you guys don't need it, then I just thought
we
it'd be cool.
definitely do need it.
I think it'd be cool to have it.
I think the only law enforcement agency that has a helicopter in Montana is, well, maybe.
When you say you need it, are you joking or are you serious?
I think we need it.
What would you use it for?
One, I mean, there would always be a need for search and rescue. Like we wouldn't have to have independent contracts anymore with these other agencies. Two, I mean, we do have a fair amount of pursuits and bad guys that run from us and hide from us and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it is such a safer option than both for the public and for the law enforcement officer and really for the bad guy. If we had a bird in the sky that could just follow from a distance and then that's what
what I was thinking about was, you guys deal with stuff in the canyon, and you could put a helicopter in the sky and get somewhere quickly.
Oh, for sure.
And not
too.
be backed up in traffic or whatever, or car accident or
Yeah,
whatever.
that too, definitely. Yeah,
So that was my thought.
100%.
When I just asked you how many officers, is there like proper terminology for sheriffs that they prefer?
Technically, we're called deputies.
Mhm.
I don't know. Nobody really cares. I mean,
Yeah.
we're all cops. So if you work for a city police
What
department,
defines a cop?
cop came from A cop just means a law enforcement officer.
Okay.
So, and it came from back in like the 1800s, I think, in England when there was bobbies. And they has something to, their badges were made of copper. So,
Okay.
hey, there's a
Yeah.
copper
Yeah, that
cop.
makes sense.
So now that's just synonymous with really any law enforcement officer.
Got
If you
it.
want to be technical, then there's deputy sheriffs, which is what I am, or police officers usually are the two main branches. Police officers work for city police departments.
Got it.
And then state troopers, do they like have a?
Troopers, just
Yeah.
trooper is there.
This
Yeah.
people always talk about this where I grew up because everyone's on edge so much in New York. So God forbid you address somebody the wrong way. Then
Oh,
If you
yeah.
call
Yeah.
them like a deputy and they're like, no, I'm a trooper.
There are definitely cops out there who get spun up about the proper terminology. Most of us don't really give a shit.
Yeah, and it's unless
Because-
you are in it, you don't know the terminology, right? It's like
For sure.
It's like the military. Like, is this person an admiral? Are they a captain? Are they what the fuck are they?
Yeah, totally.
You know, and you're like, and then you call them the wrong name, and they're like, no, that's the wrong branch, and you're like, sorry, dude.
Sorry, bud.
Like-
Yeah, don't. Yeah, there's always going to be some people that get a little bit spun around the axle about that. Most of us do not give a shit. We all do the same job.
yeah, I guess there's, as they say, some cops that got picked on too much in high school, and then they're cops. And
Yeah, there's always, a couple of them out there that give the rest of us a bad name. It's been my experience that usually those ones don't last very long because they have a very miserable life. Nobody likes them. Not the people on the street, not the people in their office. There's always a few that'll make a career out of it, but they're pretty few and far between.
yeah, that's why I have so much fun with all the guys I train with. I'm like, this is cool. Like, these are the guys that are out here working in law enforcement, and they come here and train, and they're very, you're very humble when you step into that gym and get your ass kicked and kick
For
people's
sure.
ass, and like just the mentality to know like it's such a kind of level culture for everyone there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one thing I really enjoy about doing comedy, because a lot of my jokes have to do with my job, and it allows people to view cops in a little bit different way that they maybe didn't think of before. Because usually, our job requires us to be very serious a lot of times.
Yeah.
I crack jokes whenever I can, but not every circumstance is that appropriate.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think we probably got our handful of criminals at the MMA gym too. So it's like a really leveling place.
There is something about fight clubs, man. It's like a very good mesh. So what I did when I was younger, I got into boxing for a little while. Again, like jack of all trades, master of none sort of thing. But I really enjoyed boxing, and and those guys were also like rough customers too.
Yeah.
I remember very distinctly the guy who was my coach. I told him, it was right before I became a cop. I told him, I was like, hey, I'm going to, I can't come to the gym anymore. I'm going to the police academy. And he pulls me aside and he goes, you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. You don't need that in your life. And I was like, no, I think I want to do this. I think it'll be a good move for me. It'll be a steady paycheck. And he tried to talk me out of it. Well, come to find out, after I got back from, after I started policing in the same community where I previously boxed, he was not a great guy. We always got along good, but he had a lot of problems with law enforcement. And we, if I see him again today, I don't think he lives in this country anymore, but if I were to see him again today, we'd shake hands and we'd probably bro hug it out. But his perspective of police was very different than mine.
Yeah. I guess I don't actually know anyone that are necessarily criminals at our gym, but there's like definitely the mix of everyone.
For certain.
It's very funny.
For certain.
How are things in the county from your perspective?
You mean like, is it getting busier or?
No, just like how do you think how's your department?
It's a good department. We are very blessed, both with the sheriff's office, the police department, Belgrade Police Department. We are very blessed with recruiting very high quality people here. And the sheriff's office, I'm always very proud at how we treat people. We put a real big premium on being human. My boss, I actually talked to my boss that I was coming here today and going to be talking about probably some cop shit, and he's all for it. He's like, by all means, the more you can do to relate to the public and come across as human, he's all for it. He doesn't want us to just be a badge and a gun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is not every area has that. Like there's a lot of agencies out there that really crack down. In fact, there's even case law. As a law enforcement officer, I have less freedom of speech rights than you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is, I understand why that's the case. I mean, this is I'm a public servant and it's a burden, but some agencies really hammer down on their guys and will not let, like some agencies, they would never let me do this.
Right.
For sure.
That's awesome that you can. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. The reason I ask is like, I guess I've definitely never sat down and talked to a sheriff like this. So I ask because, you never know what it's like until you're in it. Right. And so if you're not in it, then you don't know. And we're kind of joking around about plow drivers earlier, but like,
For sure.
I worry about, I think, I would say people that serve our society,
Mm-hmm.
right? I feel like we don't value them enough, and we don't appreciate people enough.
Thanks, man.
And so, yeah. And so like, I'm genuinely curious about like how, how you think the department's doing. And it sounds like you guys, the word you used was good people.
Yeah. We recruit and keep very good people. And in some areas in the country, and we get it here to an extent too, there has been in the last decade or more, a very strong like anti-police kind of wave across the country. And I've been called the worst name in the book. I've had people tell me that they're going to do awful things to my family and they know where I live.
Mm-hmm.
However, it's a fraction as bad here as it is in some places.
Mm-hmm.
If you go to some places in California,
Mm-hmm.
Chicago,
Yeah.
like it's
Big
downright
cities, yeah.
downright dangerous. I've got some scary stories just from here, but for the most part, a lot of people really support law enforcement here, which is such a blessing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an impression I got just from, I guess I've been here about 6 years, and like the gym.
Yeah,
The MMA gym is I know they do a bunch of stuff with Gallatin County and the sheriffs.
for sure.
But I mean, and a lot of those guys, I didn't know for years any of them are sheriffs. And like, that's why it's so fun there, because everyone just shows up as a human, and then
Yep.
they're like, oh, like, but I don't know. I've just gotten that.
We should connect you with Bob.
Well, Bob, friend of ours, Bob Lowry, he actually, his podcast will come out this weekend. He's very involved with the community.
Oh, cool.
He's starting some sort of nonprofit for the sheriffs.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah.
Mhm.
He just told us about it on Monday.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Love to talk to the cat.
I'd love
Yeah,
to
he's a
connect
cool
you
guy.
guys. He's just a cool guy and like very
Awesome.
involved with the community.
Yeah, absolutely.
Drives a cyber truck.
Hell, I won't hold it against
He's
him.
he's a super interesting guy, man.
Yeah.
Those Cybertrucks are actually fucking cool. Have you seen the video on Joe Rogan of, was it Elon that shot it with with an arrow?
And like didn't
That's
do anything
fucking
to it.
crazy, dude.
Yeah.
You
It's
need to
so
get
cool.
one of those. You can't be driving a Tahoe
I
anymore.
know. I should get one of those things. I don't.
He-
It doesn't look like they do great in the snow. Like,
He
I've
let
seen
us
like-
Yeah.
he let us drive it after we left.
Oh,
here.
really?
Yeah.
Is it cool?
It was cool. Yeah. It was
That's awesome.
when you sit in it, the visibility is
A
impressive.
huge windshield. I mean, it's like
Okay.
it's a huge. I mean, the windshield is like it's massive, and so you can.
Yeah, you feel
Everybody
like
loves to talk shit about Cybertrucks, but everybody would take one if they were offered one. I think like immediately, probably.
Yeah, they look kind of weird.
They do look weird. That's half the fun.
Yeah,
They do look weird, but good for him for having one. They seem awesome.
yeah.
Yeah. We'll connect you guys on an email or something. 'Cause
Absolutely.
He's doing. He just. I don't know the gist of what he said he was doing, other than it's a nonprofit for the sheriff department.
Yeah.
So
Sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's opening up a mixed martial arts gym soon.
yeah, out in Belgrade.
Oh, Belgrade.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like right off of Amsterdam.
You guys have probably just seen like MMA just blow up in the time that you've started. Like it seems like it's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah, I started doing it here in 2020, COVID. Shout out to Brian for keeping the gym open during
I
COVID.
remember that.
Yeah. But yeah, and I like it's
Nobody got COVID, but a couple people got ringworm.
I
Yeah.
mean, that's
there you go.
cost of doing business.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like it's blown up just because I've gotten more involved with the world, but it's I don't know, everything that was like kind of popular now with YouTube and social media, things have just blown up. And, the UFC is like one of the biggest,
Yeah.
sports in the world now.
I used to work with Sean O'Malley's dad.
Okay.
He was a cop in Helena. So when I was, he worked for the Lewis and Clark County Sheriff's Office. His name was Dan O'Malley. And I met Sean when he was just a tiny, tiny kid. I think just once. And his dad was a drug cop for years and years and years. Good drug cop too, but it's just been crazy. And I don't get to talk to Dan as much as I used to, but every time I do, like, he is just so proud of Sean, and his whole family, really. Like, he's done a great job. That's cool.
Funny story actually about Helena. And we go a lot to Helena to compete. They have jiu-jitsu competitions there.
Oh yeah.
So me and a buddy were like, we're just going to go the night before because it's like 9 a.m. on a Sunday. So we'll go Saturday. There's a UFC card we really want to watch. We get there. There's nowhere in Helena that plays the UFC fights.
Really?
We're like, we only play them when Sean O'Malley's fighting.
What the fuck?
That's the only time. None of the bars can justify paying for it.
That's so weird.
Because it's interesting, like the Cat's Paw, they got to pay like $7 to $10 a year because they have to do per capacity. It's not just the $100 to stream it.
Well, I guess that would put a hamper on you streaming it for sure.
So we had we had our hotel room in Helena. So we went to Walmart, bought a TV, streamed it, and then returned the TV in Bozeman the next day.
Brilliant.
We were like, you got to be kidding me, but we really wanted to see this fight.
Yeah.
We were also sitting in Helena with nothing to do. So,
Well, that's cool. That's smart. Way to use your noodle.
So comedy.
Yeah.
What other things do you like to do for fun?
Let's see. I fish a lot. I get on the river a shitload in the summertime, ice fish in the wintertime. I'm not a good fly fisherman. I try, but I'm not very, so I'm just so lazy that I'll throw the spinner out there and fucking do this. I'll do that for hours.
Cool.
And drink beer in between.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's great.
Awesome.
I love getting river time in, dude.
do you hunt much or no?
I really don't. I love gopher hunting. Would love to find a place to coyote hunt. That's getting harder and harder to find these days. My brother's really the hunter. He's the main hunter.
When you were talking about the breathing and everything, I was going to ask if you hunt much, if you have to use that to.
I would.
Yeah.
Like I use it when I'm practicing shooting, not hunting for sure. When I'm on the range and shit, I work on my breathing and breath control all the time. It's super critical.
You guys have your own range.
Yeah, we got one at the sheriff's office. It's an indoor range. Where we live now used to be only an indoor range, and then the sheriff's office bought it, and it's super nice. The indoor range is killer. I think the hope for a long time was that we could even have like public days, like the public can come in and use the range. But again, insurance, the fun killer, has said that I don't think we can do that unless there is a certified range instructor every time, which is just not feasible for us at this point, to have a range instructor for the public all the time.
Yeah. I got an idea about this helicopter though.
Okay. All right. Throw it out.
So, you just got to get creative.
Okay.
Right. So does
Sponsored by McDonald's.
No. Does
Trump pump.
Does Bozeman Police PD have a helicopter?
They don't.
Okay. Boom. Who else needs one?
I mean, if that's probably how it would happen.
You would do like a shared helicopter.
That's probably how it would happen.
Like 3 departments.
Yeah. Belgrade, Bozeman, Gallatin County.
Yep. And you all use it.
And
right.
That's exactly what.
And you hire one pilot and he gets paid by 3 different departments.
Yep.
He or she, whatever.
Yep.
And like whatever, dude.
Come on. We're trying to keep people safe.
So he
oh, that's awesome. I'm going to tell Lindsay that.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
See, now we're talking. So I just divided the cost in 3.
I like it.
We're close. We're 3 times closer to a helicopter now.
Yeah. And that if we were to do it, I could definitely see something like that happen. That's
because it would make sense, right? Because it's like, you're not going to use it all the time, right? Because you have one now. So clearly, right? But when you need one, you need one. And you're probably, if you need one, there's other departments that are going to help you in whatever the hell you're responding to.
For sure. That's what they do with the SWAT team. So the SWAT team.
See, now we're talking 4. Now we're divided by 4.
Yep. The SWAT team is divided between sheriff's office, Bozeman PD, and they just started putting, I think I think maybe they haven't even done this yet, but they're going to do it. But Belgrade PD is going to be on there. And they kind of share costs of equipment and all that shit. So, yeah, it makes sense to me. If the sheriff is listening, that's what we should do, Sheriff.
You know, I don't know if the sheriffs are involved with this. My sister had just sent me, I think Bozeman PD is doing something. It's like an 8-week program where the town or people from the town can pretty much go see what they're doing.
Yeah.
I just looked at it, I'm like, that's fucking genius because
the Citizens Academy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Will you just do ride-alongs and stuff?
that's part of it. You get to do ride-alongs.
Can I carry a pistol?
No.
Easy, Kyle.
I'm not psychologically fit.
Well, I mean, it's just a lot of liability and all that good shit. I hate saying that word. Liability,
I'm just messing with you.
I know. But yeah, so it's like an 8-week program, and it's like once a week you come in and there's a different presentation. Like the patrol division will come in and do a 2-hour presentation. And then the drug task force the next week will come in and do a 2-hour presentation. Then, the SWAT team will come in and do a 2-hour presentation, all these different things. And then throughout that, you also have to go on a ride along or two. It's a great tool to show people what we do and just kind of get them some face time with their local cops.
Cool.
Bozeman PD does it, and the sheriff's office does it.
Citizens Academy.
The Citizens Academy.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
when I read it, I was thinking this is perfect. This is kind of the opposite of all the stuff you see across the country of, cops are terrible, defund the police. And this is the police department's wanting to kind of have an open door policy with the public and, hey, this is what we do. Come check it out.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's been a very powerful tool. And, specifically you mentioned ride-alongs. I am a huge proponent of ride-alongs because I have seen it, like taking people on a ride-along, their mentality shift in a matter of moments. Like, oh my gosh, like I might get shot at all of a sudden, I'm sitting in the police car. It's just a completely different brain shift. And one of the most powerful tools that we have to really show people what it's like. And it's great. I go out of my way when I feel that somebody has like some animosity towards cops. I'll be like, you should come do a ride along. Come on, come get in the car and sit behind the windshield and see what it's like.
You can sit in the fucking back.
Yes. Put these bracelets on.
Yeah, I did the ride along with the fire department a few years ago, and my mother was an EMT forever, but it's so good to just see things from that point of view.
Yeah.
And we went to the one bullshit call we went on was somebody passed out drunk in the weeds, and they got to send a truck to every one of those.
Yep, for sure. It changes your perspective for certain. And if anybody out there wants to do a ride along, hit me up. Hit the sheriff's office up, Bozeman Police Department, anybody, pretty much any agency around here.
I'm going to do a ride along after we get the helicopter.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, go for the big
hanging off the side.
Rambo that shit.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. That'd be great. You should do it.
When you said liabilities you hate, somebody just was talking to me about driving CEOs of big companies up to Big Sky, and they're not allowed to go in a Yellowstone Club helicopter because they're worth so much that it's too much of a liability.
Really?
I don't know if I want that liability, but thanks.
Yeah, so put them in my car.
Say that again?
The CEOs are worth so much money that they won't let them take the helicopter from the Bozeman airport to the YC.
That actually makes sense.
Great. Well, I guess it makes sense, but
I used to work for a really big construction company. It was nationwide, and the company would never put some of the same high executives all in the same plane.
I've heard of that
because they're like, if we lose 4 of these people, the company's gone.
Doesn't the president do that too? Like the president and vice president don't even go in the same plane.
Right.
Yeah.
So a lot of times they won't put people on the same plane just because that reason.
Makes sense.
That's a weird thought, but it makes sense.
Yeah. Because they have first in command, second, third, fourth, and there's if this person dies, then this person takes over the company.
When I was a little kid,
so they don't put them all together.
When I was a little kid, my dad managed a dude ranch over by White Sulphur Springs, and the folks that bought the dude ranch, it was kind of a startup. That exact thing happened to them. Like the top 3 guys that bought the dude ranch were in a small Cessna and got flown into the side of a mountain. And it was topsy-turvy.
Yeah, and that's exactly why this happened. Is right. It's happened before, and it's completely screwed things up, right? That like people have built their life for,
Yep.
right? Or
And now
we've built like a
company.
100-year company and it could get wiped out overnight,
Yeah, for sure.
or you've built, so then and everything that goes with it. So it makes a lot of sense.
Indeed.
It's a crazy thought.
Yeah, I don't think I will ever be worth that much. I don't think I'll have to worry about not getting to. I'll never get to fly in the Yellowstone chopper, but not because I'm worth too much. Probably the other way.
Is your hat, is that a brand or something?
That is John Wayne's brand.
Okay.
Yeah.
26.
26 bar. One of my wife and I just got back from Fort Worth, Texas, which is a great town. Yeah, we were talking about that, and they have the John Wayne Experience, which is a museum down there, and it's got tons of John Wayne memorabilia, and they sell these hats. And about every time we go down there, I got to get a new hat. It's like one of my favorite hats. I love John Wayne.
Nice.
He's the shit, for sure. And I guess I just found this out, like his family, like a bunch of his sons that are still alive, every year they have like John Wayne Day, and the family all come down and you can drink wine with them at the John Wayne Experience. Definitely going to go do that one of these years. It's going to be awesome.
Nice.
Yeah.
You almost wouldn't think it'd be wine.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like maybe that's a little bit of a letdown. Maybe I can get him to have some whiskey, but we'll see. I can be persuasive when I need to be, for sure.
Nice.
You want to wrap this up here?
Sure.
Thank you
Appreciate
guys.
you. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, man.
Dude,
Really good to meet you.
What a great experience.
I'm going to come do a ride along.
I hope you do.
Yeah.
Let's get like any links from you for your comedy or anything where people can find
Yeah.
you, and we'll
Yeah.
put it all on this episode when it comes out.
Hit me up at Quantum Cult. Quantum Cult is my Instagram handle, and
Cool.
that's kind of where I'm going to try to put most of my comedy shit. So
Awesome.
Do you
Yeah.
know when you're gonna be doing another set?
don't have that date right now.
Cool.
But,
Let us know.
But I will let you know for
Yeah.
sure.
That'd be
when
awesome.
the next one's coming up. But
We'll
yeah.
bring a whole cult following.
Oh, dude, I love it.
Yeah.
By all means. Thanks,
Yeah.
guys.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you.